It's the worst of the CBC for December 17th, 2020, the show where I watch the CBC so you don't have to. All right, today we're finally going to talk about the COVID because it is actually something different. And the CBC did the show that I predicted they would do in May, which is why I had my, hey, let's face sort of the second wave a bit in the summer when we sort of have the high ground on the disease rather than pushing this off to the winter. So there was no one in the medical community or anyone reasonable anywhere who thought that there wouldn't be a second wave of COVID-19. Okay, this is how all disease works. SARS. Okay, this is basic epidemiology here. There's a second wave. First wave happens, everyone's sort of locked down, we take maximum precautions, then we start to loosen, we hit the second wave. So we decided when to trigger the second wave. And we decided to trigger it right as everything started to get colder and flu season came around and days would get colder and darker. That's when we started to trigger the second wave and then push the isolation during that time. I said we should have been pushing that May, June, right? Sort of get this second wave out of the way when we had the high ground, when we still had the maximum resources. Okay. And the way the Trudeau government want to deal with it, again, flatten the curve. This is the curve of COVID-19, right? The problem is when it exceeds, this is our ventilator capacity, right? And the ability, resources to deal with it. The disease is real. It's not the super virus. It's twice as deadly and about twice as transmissible as the flu. But it's not nothing. It's not the super Ebola. But the real problem is, again, exceeding ventilator capacity. It's when the hospitals get overloaded, which is why flattening the curve, we need to flatten it to increase the line. What did Justin Trudeau do? He gave the contract to those ventilators to a friend who started the company just a week before. There were no cross bids on it. The Canadians paid about 11 times as much as they were worth. And we basically had a rookie company from an ex-Liberal MP, friend of Justin Trudeau, get a cushy $100 million contract to screw up our ventilators. So they didn't really care, right? And then the other thing we should have been doing is building sort of COVID field hospitals. Because what the CBC finally covered today is the fact that people are going to be dying from the effects of reducing hospital capacity because of all the massive COVID restrictions. So because of all the massive COVID restrictions, right, we're not screening for cancer as much. We're not doing cancer surgeries. Now, we've been talking about this forever. However, the CBC finally decided to talk about it because there's an Indigenous person who is not getting cancer surgery right now, and this is now news. Now, not to rip on the Indigenous, there's nothing wrong the Indigenous community has done in any of this. And they're only being used as political props by the left because that's what they do. So, the real thing that's driving Canadians crazy here is Canadians have been saying for a while, okay, you're saying life, we must protect the maximum amount of lives, and no one can have a life. Please don't give it to any money small business. Give all your money to Jeff Bezos and never leave your house, never talk to your family, never call your grandmother or else she'll die. Okay. We've been saying that, okay, we can take some restrictions, but all these restrictions you're putting it, when you reduce the capacity of the medical system, you're going to be causing more deaths long term. So if we're just talking about raw amount of deaths as the only metric we're looking for, hey, how about this? And then the only time we can actually have this conversation is when an Indigenous person gets brain cancer, and then we need to talk about that. Right? So, it was the same thing with small businesses. We can't talk about the effect of small businesses and how catastrophic it was. And then all of a sudden, the CBC found out that black and brown small businesses are really hurting during the pandemic. Oh my God, is this racism? No, it's every small business is hurting. And again, nothing against these black or brown people. They weren't the ones saying this. They're just the white people in the CBC trying to make this case. So that's sort of the maddening thing is these things that we've been trying to been pushing or trying to bring up for months and being called scaremongers, conspiracy theorists, blah, 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 COVID deniers, blah, blah, blah. Just saying no, but listen to this. Well, all of a sudden it happened to an Indigenous person, so now it's real news, right? That's the maddening thing of the CBC. Okay. Worst covered story of the day. That was that. Biggest omission. I'm going to call it Justin Trudeau's quest for a new super soldier. Well, top military official. So Justin Trudeau wants Canada's next top soldier to fight against systemic racism and extremism. Now, Harjit Sajjan, our current top soldier, is a Khalistani extremist sympathizer. I'm going to call him that. Come after me, Harjit. Our allies in India, there was a Sikh colonel from the same town in India as Harjit Sajjan, I think Air Force colonel, and he wouldn't shake his hand. He wouldn't meet with him because he's like, no, I know them. They're Khalistanis. They're terrorists. I'm not going to shake his hand. Navdeep Bains, Raj Gurwal, we've had lots of Khalistani. I mean, why did Justin Trudeau start talking about Punjabi farmers, and then it all turned into Khalistani stuff? And the Khalistanis are Sikh separatists from India, but they'll often be chanting Allahu Akbar and very pro-Pakistani, because the Khalistani is a big, big problem with extremism. So we're talking about we need a top soldier to fight extremism. You can't, this is a maddening thing. It's this person's obviously going to be there to fight white supremacy, which of course is evil and extremist, and all white supremacists are bad at thinking. I get it. But there's other types of extremism. There's radical left-wing extremism. There's the Muslim Brotherhood. There's radical intersectional feminism. There's the Khalistani movement. And the Khalistanis are really, really dangerous, because they'll sort of cooperate with every other extremist group because their cause is kind of dead, except we've kept it alive in Canada because we're idiots. This is the Air India bombing people. So they'll just sort of be in every other extremist groups taking money and sort of creating shenanigans because they're sort of like the extremists of the cause here. So they're always near the Muslim Brotherhood. They're always near the radical leftists. The Chinese CCP always has a hand in them. And sometimes you'll find them even, sympathizing with white nationalist movements to sort of push their thing and undermine India. So they're really dangerous because they'll sort of enable and cooperate with any sort of extremist faction. So this was our current top soldier, Harjit Sajjan. Who's the next one? Like, you've already given, you're gonna say, oh, he's there to fight extremism, but you filled that position right with the Khalistani, someone who sympathizes with, the Khalistani movement. So, who's the next defense minister? Omar Al-Ghabra? Mr. Hamas and Hezbollah are not terrorist organizations. The Muslim Brotherhood we should support. I mean, who's going to be? Who's it going to be? Right? Robin DiAngelo? The white fragility lady? I mean, that's where we're on the path with Trudeau. So that's just maddening. It's going to be one of those things where, like, oh my God, he's here to fight extremism. We might fight extremism. And we're cooperate with the NCCM to fight white supremacy in the military. I guarantee you that's coming. We're going to have the Muslim Brotherhood. We're going to be consulting, I guarantee you, the new chief soldier in Canada will be consulting the Muslim Brotherhood on how to fight Islamophobia in the world or something. And it's just going to be an absolute disaster. And I'm going to bash my head through a wall. So if you want to see me bash my head through a wall, just, like and share the video or something. You know what to do. All right. See everyone tomorrow.